When she saw what happened to her son's grave, she didn't believe her eyes. When parents bury their children, they experience the most unfair and devastating moment in their lives. No one deserves to go through that. It may take you years to start moving on and find another purpose in your life. This mother had to overcome the unbearable pain when her one and only child died. One day, she visited her son's grave, and what she saw made her stand there speechless. The grave was green, full of grass. What's more, there was no other green grave in the whole cemetery. She had no idea what was going on, but the woman cried her eyes out when she found out. Raymond and Rachel were a lovely couple who had always wanted a lot of kids. They welcomed a wonderful son to this world, and everything seemed to be more than fine. But then a tragic accident happened that changed everything in their lives forever. Sergeant Joseph Villasenor, their son, was enrolled in the United States Air Force in 1994, where he served. He was also into softball and joined the Charleston Air Force Base's softball team. The boy was living his dream until one day everything tragically ended. Joseph had got into a car accident and died immediately. When his parents and lovely wife found it out, they were utterly broken and could not handle the unexpected and disastrous events. They decided to bury his body in Conroe, Texas. Their grief was overwhelming. Raymond and Rachel went through many challenges to get a child, and now he was gone forever. Nothing could help them feel less pain until a strange man did something that made them think they were not alone. But who was he? Jake Reisig was 18 when he met the love of his life and his only wife, Betty. At that moment, the girl was only 15, but their love was so strong that they got married a few years later and loved each other for the rest of Betty's life. Unfortunately, in her 60s, Betty passed away unexpectedly. Jake had no clue and reason to be happy since then. Luckily, the couple was blessed with 9 children and 17 grandchildren, and it created a huge family. But when his beloved wife died, the only thing Jake wanted to do was visiting her grave and doing good things. At his 65th, Jake was still deeply in love with Betty. He visited her grave every day, leaving flowers and watering the grass. Seeing the green growing made him feel overwhelmed with emotions. But then, Jake decided to do something more. Since roses were Betty's favorite flowers, he promised to give her a rose every single day. It symbolized their bonding, love, and commitment, and the man continued keeping his promise even after his darling wife's death. Also, Jake promised himself to commit good things, as Betty was a great and kind-hearted woman, so he thought this was exactly what she would want him to do. So, the man decided to show his empathy to another family, whose son's grave was close to Betty's. He had already known some basic information about the poor man's death and was baffled to learn that he had a very similar background to what one of his sons had. But what he saw next broke him even more. He had often seen the man's wife crying for hours in front of his grave. Jake saw she was struggling a lot and couldn't deal with the thought her husband was dead. But later, Jake found out she was carrying the man's baby in her belly that would never meet his father. It broke Jake to pieces. The world was too unfair. Jake wanted to show his compassion somehow, and after thinking for a few days, he did it. Since the man was already watering his wife's grave, watering this man's grave became his ritual as well. What's more, he was doing that with deep love and dedication, even though he had never met that man and his family members. One day, Jake saw the woman crying on the grave again, and he really felt her pain. Then he decided to come closer to her and calm her down. The two started talking. The woman was overwhelmed by the stranger's compassion. After a while, both of them knew each other's story and how they lost their beloved ones. Jake felt he had to do more for this woman. After their small talk, Jake watered the man's grave every single day. He wanted to make it as green as possible. He even left the flowers there, showing his care and dedication. Even though he never saw the wife again, he met someone else. Another woman came to visit that man and stood there crying. It was his mother. When she saw the grave was green and clean, she was baffled and shocked as she had never seen anyone taking care of it. At that point, Jake plucked up the courage to come closer to the woman. With a broad smile on his face, he approached her and introduced himself. Then the man revealed the truth about her son's grave and told her about his past. He never told the woman he met the man's wife and got to know the story of his life. Jake said he wanted to help, and that's why he was watering and decorating her son's grave. The mother could not believe her eyes. The day before, the mother saw the green grave and came home to tell her husband. She could not explain it any other way, so she thought it was a miracle of God's design. But then she met Jake and was so grateful to him that she wanted to introduce him to her husband. That's how Jake met all the family and wife together and found new friends. He had even invited them all for dinner, where he told them about his past and his darling wife Betty. He then revealed a secret to the family that he hadn't told them yet. They were all shocked to find out what the man went through before Betty's death. His son-in-law, Misha, also was a veteran as Joseph was, so Jake could understand what the couple felt at this point. He died because of cancer since chemo and other treatment didn't help him and couldn't save his life. But that was not the only devastating moment in Jake's life. Jake also had a younger son called Roger. He was almost killed by the robbers who broke into his house and threatened him with a gun. Luckily, his neighbors noticed something was wrong and called 911 before anything even worse happened. Raymond, Rachel, the wife, Jake, and Roger became good friends now. They started regularly visiting each other, telling the stories of their lives and enjoying time together. After knowing how many challenges Jake went through in his life, Raymond and Rachel decided to do something good for him. So they did exactly what Jake had done for them all this time. They decorated Betty's grave with lots of beautiful flowers. When Jake saw their kind gesture, he started crying from emotions. He did something good for the complete strangers, and they did the same for him. Jake had finally felt happy for the first time after losing his wife. This benign man kept on doing small acts of kindness for people he knew and those who were complete strangers to him. That's what made him special. In a few years, Jake died from a heart attack. Raymond and Rachel went to his funeral and would never forget such a kind-hearted and unselfish man.